meeting. All right. So a printing part is kind of complicated to understand the process, the work process. So I'm gonna show you many videos for your understanding. So let's get started. So printing is a process for reproducing text and images using a master form or template. So there are 5 big printing techniques: relief, intaglio, lithography, screen printing, digital inkjet. So we are going to skip this last one, digital inkjet. Probably everyone knows what it is. So we're going to see these 4 printing techniques today. So let's see the first one, relief. Relief print make the print, the plate raised area hold the ink. So the top part hold the ink to make the image. So the term relief describes any printing method in which the image to be printed is raised from a background. So here is the process of relief printing. Step 1, an image is designed and is prepared for transfer to the block surface. And step 2, the image is now transferred to the block. And step 3, the surface area that will not be printed is curved away like this. And step 4, the remaining protruding surface, the top part, is carefully inked. And step 5, the raised inked area is transferred to the surface to be printed. So that was the the basic relief printing process. And there are 3 popular ways of relief printing: woodcut, wood engraving, and lino cut. Woodcut is that an artist carves an image into the surface of a block of wood, typically with gauzes. And the next one, wood engraving. Wood engraving is a printmaking and letterpress printing technique in which an artist works an image or matrix of images into a block of wood. And the last one, lino cut. Lino cut is also called like linoleum cut. It is very similar to a wood cut. So linoleum, however, is much softer than wood. The relative softness makes linoleum easier to cut. So this one is woodcut relief printing. So as you can see, the image area and the image outline were curved away, and the rest of the area is printed with ink. That is woodcut. And this is wood engraving. So except for the image outline, the rest parts are curved away. So the outlines are printed by ink. That is called wood engraving. And the last one is lino cut. So a lino cut can do the same way with wood cut and wood engraving. So it's just using a different block, which is softer and easier to cut, called like a linoleum. So let me share a video to show the relief printing work process.
I make relief prints Pretty much everything's based off of drawings, little notebook doodles that get evolved into a draft, so there's a ton of redrawing. Spend a lot of time with the same image, constantly refine, until I basically know every mark that I'm going to make, and then to make it into a print. 3 disciplines, basically: drawing, the actual cutting of the drawing into a template matrix, a material that I carve into, like Sintra, woodblock, whatever that will be, and then printing that. This is MDF, so there's no grain, and this is a drawing that I have transferred to the MDF. And these are the tools that I use, old textile tools. So I got U-gouges, a different assortment of sizes, V-gouge, and then I would tone the block with an acrylic so I can see my mark, what I've done here with the graphite, because if I was just to make a mark in the wood without toning it, you can't really see what you're doing. Lay some color down, boom, it really pops out. After I've gotten all of my detail outline work out of the way, then I will go in with a bigger U-gouge, carve around the whole piece so you get bigger, much larger marks. A couple of those next to each other, and then just keep hacking away. This was once 3/4 inch, and now it's at some points down to like not even a half an inch. So I've gone and just chiseled out all that, makes it look really clean. It confuses people. Is that a woodcut or is that a screen print? So that's what I like to go for. Here we go. The first part of printing is getting a nice ink palette going. This is a Japanese ink. Basically what you're looking for is a nice velvet kind of sheen. You don't want to put too much ink. You want that porridge just perfect. This is just caveman registration right here, just so I know where to put the paper and where to put the actual little block. I like to wet the paper, get really nice, rich blacks, details. Line it up with my registration. Put the block down. Ensure no movement of the paper. So we'll roll it through the 15th century copying machine. No electricity needed. Pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So that is relief printing. So, as you can see, so he just, left all the outline of the, image, and they curved out all the rest parts. So this is wood engraving, relief printing. So now let's move on to the next printing technique, intaglio. Intaglio print make the print plates incised area hold the ink. So this is the plate, the side view, and the this incised area means like the image scratches, and the scratched lines hold the ink, not the top part of the plate. So let's see how it works. So this is the process of intaglio printing. So step 1, an image is designed for the plate. And step 2, using a sharp tool, the artist incises the image into the plate. And step 3, the plate is inked. And step 4, the surface of the plate is wiped and removing all ink except in the grooves. And step 5, paper is placed on the plate and it is pressed. And step 6, the paper lifts the ink out of the grooves and the ink is imprinted on the paper. And step 7, the final image is completed. So let's see number 3 and number 4. So, with the needle, an artist can draw an image on the plate, and most of the plate is using with the metal plate. So make the scratch to draw the image, and print on the plate, and see when they remove the plates. Remove the ink on the top of the plate, then only the image line hold the ink. So that is the point of this intaglio printing technique. So intaglio is exactly the reverse of relief, in that the area meant to print are below the surface of the printing plate. The artist used a sharp tool here or acid to make depressions like lines, grooves, or pits in a metal plate. When the plate is inked, the ink sinks into the depressions. Then the surface of the plate is wiped clean. When damped paper now is brought into contact with the plate under pressure, the paper is pushed into the depressions to pick up the image. So there are diverse types of intaglio, but we are going to see 3 intaglio printmaking technique. So first one is dry point and etching, and the last one is aquatint. Intaglio is kind of hard to understand, so I'm gonna show you each techniques video for your understanding. So let's see one by one. So let's see dry point first. Dry point is similar to engraving, except that the cutting instrument used a dry point needle. The artist draws on the plate, usually a copper plate, and almost as freely as one can draw on paper with a pencil. So as a needle scratches across the plate, it raises a burr or thin ridge of metal. It left in place. The burr will hold the ink along with the incised line, producing a soft, slightly blurred line when printed. So this is the result of the dry point printing. So it looks like a pencil drawing, right? So let me share a video to show how to make dry point printing. Dry point intaglio printing.
Dry point is a printmaking process in which an image is incised by hand onto a printing plate. Once the image is made, it is inked and printed with a press. The dry point line creates a burr which catches the ink. I'm using an Akua printmaking plastic plate. It's very soft and easy to incise and press into. This is a line roulette dry point tool. It leaves an impression of a series of short lines. Rich darks are created by overlapping and cross-hatching. This roulette has a random dot pattern, which creates tonal values and textural effects. Needle tip dry point tools offer fine lines on top of the roulette marks or on top of the smooth surface of the plate. The image is finished and ready to be inked up for printing. I'm going to use Akua Intaglio soy-based ink right from the jar. Akua Intaglio ink is perfect for printing a dry point plate. The ink is applied gently with a piece of mat board. Once the plate is completely covered with a thin layer of ink, Akua wiping fabric is used to wipe away excess ink. An inky piece of wiping fabric rolled into a ball is used first. Akua wiping fabric is recommended because it is softer than tarlatan, yet more absorbent than cheesecloth. Akua Intaglio ink will not skin or harden on the wiping fabric. To remove more plate tone and create a higher contrast print, I will continue to wipe the plate with a clean piece of wiping fabric.
See, as you can see, all the drawing lines hold the ink and she's wiping away all the unnecessary ink from the plate.
Once the desired amount of ink is removed, the plate is run through an etching press along with a piece of dampened paper. When printing with the Cointalio ink, it is very important that the paper is just slightly damp. If the paper is too wet, the print will dry hazy. An hour ago, I sprayed the paper, then placed it in a plastic bag. Blotting before printing will ensure that the paper is not too wet. For easy registration, I prepared a template and placed it on the press bed. As the plate goes through the press, the ink is being transferred from the plate to the paper. The high pigment load in a Cointalio Mars Black highlights the velvety appearance of the dry point line.
So that is dry point. So it looks like a pencil drawing, right? Now, let's see the next intaglio technique, etching. So etching is done with acid that it lines and depressions into a metal plate, much as sharp tools cut those depressions in the method. So the process is here. The artist coats the entire plate with an acid-resistant substance called a ground. So the top part is ground, so it's covered the plate. And step 2, the artist draws on the coated plate with an etching needle. The needle removes the ground, exposing the bare metal in areas meant to print. And step 3, the entire plate is dipped in acid bath, only the portion of the plate intact. And the ground is removed and the plate is inked and printed. So this is an etching printing work. So it looks like a pen drawing with modeling mask, right? So the lines are deeper and darker compared to the dry point because the drawing lines are depressed by acid. So that is the difference with the dry point. So let me share a video to show etching intaglio printing technique process.
Today we're going to look at the process of etching. You're looking at prints by Rembrandt. These are all etchings. Now etching is a form of printmaking called intaglio, and that includes etching and engraving. Ground your plate. You'll need a brush, you'll need etching ground, and of course you'll need a plate. The next thing you'll need to do is use the brush to apply the ground to the plate. You may choose to dab the brush because you don't want brush strokes, you just want a smooth surface. Then allow the ground to dry on the plate. Allow ample time for this to happen. It may be several hours. Overnight is a good idea. Next, you'll begin to scratch off the areas that you want to be black. You may achieve this by scratching in a crosshatch pattern or perhaps using squiggly lines. You can use any sharp tool to accomplish this. In this case, I prepared my plate using a leather punch. Here's a look at the completed plate for this etching. Now you'll need to gather your supplies for the acid part of this process. You'll need acid, gloves, eye protection, and an etched plate. In this case, I'm using copper etching solution. You may order this from the internet, or you may pick it up at your local and drop the etched plate into the acid bath. You'll now allow the acid bath to bite into the plate. Everywhere where there is not ground, the acid will bite into the plate. Brush away the bubbles during this process. This process may take anywhere from several seconds to several minutes, depending on the strength of the acid used. Now you'll need to gather your cleaning supplies to clean the removed plate. Clean the ground from the plate using either acetone or some other paint thinner. Now gather your ink supplies. This will include oil-based printing ink and some type of card. Add a dab of ink to the plate. Next, spread the ink around with the card. Be sure to force the ink into the grooves of the plate. Now you may choose to use newspaper or cheesecloth and gently wipe away the ink from the surface of the plate. Here's what your prepared plate should look like.
So, the drawing lines hold the ink only, just like the dry point.
Now lay the prepared plate onto the press. Prepare some paper by moistening the paper with a little bit of water. This will allow for the paper to actually suck the ink off of the plate onto the paper. Lay the paper on top of the plate inside of the press. Run the plate through the press and gently pull away the print from the plate, pulling from one corner. Here's a look at the completed print and the plate beside each other.
Yep, that is etching intaglio printing. All right, so now let's see the third intaglio technique, aqua tint. Aqua tint is a way of achieving flat of tone gray values or intermediate values of color. So, which means it doesn't need a needle to draw something on the plate like the other two intaglio techniques we just saw together. The artist first dusts, these are dusts with finely powdered resin, and the plate is heated so that the resin sticks to it. The resin is reduced acid, so when the plate is immersed in acid, the acid will bite all around the resin particles, producing a pitted surface that holds ink evenly. And the artist block non-printing area with ground and brush and dip the entire plate into an acid bath. And the ground is removed and the plate is inked and printed. So let me share a video first to see the work process because it's kind of tricky to understand the aqua tint intaglio printing technique. So he's putting the powder and then heating and heating again and dry again and heat again. See, he's using the ground to cover the plate. So where he doesn't want to exposure from the acid. So the rest of the part will be, to make the depression to print it. And that's acid bath. And he's putting his plate in the acid bath and then dry it. So he's covering some part of the depressed plate because he wants to make the the gradation, like modeling mass, different value on the plate. and depression again, and covering some part. So, some parts has, lots of exposure from the, acid. Then that parts, the not covering part at the end, that is the darkest part. So he is creating the value scale by controlling the, covering part by the acid. And now he's removing the ground. So can you see it? No. Some parts are, very, make the deep depressions like this. And he's filing the edge of the plate because since the plates are metal, if the edge is too sharp, then it can cut the paper when it's printed. Make it clean before it is printed. And he's cutting the paper for the printing. Let me just skip this part and make the paper wet to suck the ink from the plate. So see, it has different value of the drawing. And then as you saw, he didn't use any drawing lines here. He just used the brush and then, regulating the ground on the plate. That is aqua tint. So as you can see, this aqua tint intaglio printing technique looks different with the the previous two intaglio technique like etching or dry point, because it doesn't need to be used the the needle, the drawing needle on the plate, so you cannot find any scratched lines on the work of art. So there are all flatted value modeling because, again, it doesn't use a needle. Now let's move on to the third printing technique, lithography. So lithography is totally different technique with the relief and the intaglio. So here's the image area on the lithography plate, and this part holds ink, and non-image areas repel the ink. So there is no curving, needle drawing, or acid drawing. So here is the printing process. Step 1, the artist designs the image to be printed. And step 2, using a grease pencil. So that's the different one. Using a grease pencil, the design is drawn on the onto the limestone. It's a stone, blocking the pores. And step 3, the stone is treated with acid and other chemicals that are brushed brushed onto its surface. Then the surface is wiped clean with the solvent such as kerosene. So that acid is not for depression, just to make the chemical effect. And step 4, the stone is sponged so that water can be absorbed into the pores of the stone. In step 5, oil-based ink is repelled by the water and sits only on areas where the oil crayon image was drawn. In step 6, the paper is laid on the surface of the stone and it is drawn through a press. In step 7, the print is removed from the stone. In step 8, the completed image appears in reverse compared with the original design. So let me share a video to see the actual work process.
My name is Laura, and I'm in my second year of MA Printmaking here at Camberwell College of Arts. I'm going to show you lithography, which is a process that I'm mostly used.
So this is a limestone for the lithography printing. And she's just sketching.
Before coming here, I was not using print.
So she's using a grease pencil.
Making. I mostly draw on paint, so lithography feels quite close to the feeling to painting or drawing directly on paper.
So the drawing parts, the grease pencils drawing part will hold the ink.
I like it because it's quite painterly and yeah, it's very close to my sensitivity. The feeling is close to do it, but actually in the print process, there are many accidents, and I'm very quick normally on the drawings, but.
And she's coating the plate with the some chemical substance.
But with the printmaking, I need to be more thinking of what I'm doing. It is going to be reproduced many times, whether with the drawing or painting, everything is happening there.
That's just the water. So see, can you see it? So the the image part is oil based, so the water is not mixed on it, right?
Taking a drawing on like a stone or a plate, it feels a little bit more precious. You plan and you put layers on it, so there is a bit more planning. You have a little bit more pressure on you. You need to constantly think about that the image is going to be mirrored. But even when you're drawing, actually, it's like on a piece of paper, I normally start from the left.
So see, only the image part hold the ink and the rest of the part repels ink. Any inks on the background.
But then sometimes when I print, I say, oh, okay, that obviously looks different because the figure that it meant to be on the left is on the right. is quite demanding. I mean, I enjoy that part, maybe because I enjoy materials. In my BA, I did sculpture, and I'm quite, linked into materials, and I quite enjoy the physical labor of printmaking.
All right, that was lithography. So lithography is a planographic process, which means that the printing surface is flat. It is not raised as in relief or depressed as in intaglio. To make a lithographic print, the artist draws the image on the stone with greasy materials. And when the stone is inked, the greasy ink sticks to the greasy drawing. That's lithography. And let's move on to the last printing technique, screen printing. Screen printing is called silk screen or serigraphy. There is a screen for screen printing, and the ink passes through the areas of the screen that are not blocked. So this apple part is not blocked, so the ink can through the screen. So mostly the image area. Traditionally, this printing technique is used for t-shirt printing. Screen printing is a printing technique where a mesh is used to transfer ink onto a substrate, except in areas made impermeable to the ink by a blocking stencil. So this orange part is blocking. The screen is a fine mesh of silk or synthetic fiber mounted in a frame, rather like window screen. Working from drawings, the printmaker blocks the screen areas that are not meant to print by plugging the hole so that no ink can pass through. And the screen is placed over paper, and the ink is forced through the mesh with the tool called squeezy. Only the areas not stopped out allow the ink to pass through on paper. So let me share the last video to show the screen printing work process.
I like to make stuff. Today, I'm going to show you how to screen print your own t-shirts and some photo emulsion. This stuff comes in two parts. You're going to add a little water to the little bottle of sensitizer and mix it up. That loosens it from the sides of the bottle, and then you can pour it into the emulsion. Then you're going
So that chemical will block the screen.
to mix that all together really, really well until it's a consistent green color. It might take a little while, but you want to make sure that you get it fully consistent. Once you have,
And that the green thing is very sensitive from the light. So when it's exposure from the light, then the part will be block the holes, so the ink will not through on the paper.
you pour a little bit of it onto the screen. You don't need to use very much because it spreads really thin once you use a squeegee. Make sure to get the entire thing covered where your art's going to be, and make sure it's really, really even. Now don't leave this out in the light. Put a fan on it to dry and turn the lights off. You want it to dry in the dark. Once it's dry, you do want to work quickly because this stuff is photosensitive.
Yeah, photosensitive. So this photo has, black parts, right? So these black parts will not be exposed by light, and the rest of the part will be exposed by the light. So the background will be, the background screen will be blocked.
So the longer the light's on it, the quicker it's going to set. Print out your art on some transparencies, and you can do this at any office supply store, and then lay them backward on the back of the screen. Lay a piece of glass over them to push them down against the screen, and then set a really bright light on top of it for about 30 or 45 minutes. So let's get back to the printing. The light exposes and hardens the emulsion that is not covered by the design. So you can see the lighter green stuff here didn't get exposed. You can use a light spray and a soft toothbrush to help remove this area. The way printing works is that the green area acts as a mask. The white or lighter area lets the ink through onto the surface that you're printing on. You want to do this gently because you don't want to remove anything that you actually need. This may take a little bit of time, and sometimes you may have mistakes. If you have areas that are mistakes or stuff you don't want to print yet, you can use some tape to cover them up. Use painter's tape and not duct tape. The duct tape will rip off the emulsion. Now lay out your shirt and place your screen, then add a nice thick bead of the screen printing ink. It's best to have somebody else hold your screen and then pull the squeegee down across your print.
Yep, looks cool, right? That's screen printing. So this is a screen printing work. So it looks like a solid acrylic painting, right? So for screen printing, artists use one screen frame for each color. So for this work, for example, the artist used one frame is for the ivory color, and one is for light gray and medium gray, and dark gray, and one is for the navy, and one is for the light red and the dark red, and one is for the background. The background is gradation color, so it can be used only one screen for the background. Maybe put the blue color and the orange color together on the one frame and then just to squeeze together to mix the color naturally. So that's a lot. That's a lot of frames. So it looks a great work of art with an excellent technique. So that's it for this chapter. I know there are lots of tricky terms and the processes. So we're gonna do discussion today related to this chapter. Through this discussion activity, you're gonna review all the printing techniques again. So here is today's topic. So please watch the printing process video below. We just watched them together. So please rewatch the videos again and choose one of the traditional printing technique and tell us the brief printing features and process. That's today's discussion.